On today's episode of Locked On Wild, good news on the injury front. Surely you can't be serious. I am serious. And don't call me sure.
Hey, this is Matt Boldy, and you're listening to Locked On Wild.
Hey, this is Marcus Johansson, and you're listening to Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, we are your team each and every day. We thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day as well. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, we're going to get caught up on some of the injury news that has been hitting the Wild throughout camp. Some good news, some not great news, and a lot of questions. My name is Seth Toupal, host of Locked On Wild, host of Seth on Sports, and credentialed media member for the 2025-2026 season. What would it be if not a Minnesota Wild training camp without injuries? And the Wild have had a few, but to be honest, I was not expecting to get really any good news on any of the injuries that the Wild are currently dealing with, and yet the Wild did. From yesterday, courtesy of Dylan Lokes of the Hockey News, John Hynes said that Jonas Brodin was put in a full contact practice today. They will know later this week his timetable of how much he will be out for. It was his first contact practice. So with it being the 29th today, with the season starting on the 9th, you've got a game on the 9th, you've got a game on the 11th. It could be that Brodin misses the first couple of games, but then also keep in mind the Wild have a preseason game against the Jets. They have one more preseason game after that. Then they will have their typical beginning season kind of final retreat after training camp is finished. And then they will get themselves ready for the start of the season. So there will be two more games and a few practices before that Thursday game against the St. Louis Blues. So if Brodin is in just regular contact practice, this is a very good sign for his speedy return to the lineup. And that would be a big lift to the Minnesota Wild defensively. Now, we also, as we continue to see the training camp roster get cut down, we did get word that Carson Lambos was amongst the cuts for the Wild as they reduced their training camp roster. The most recent round included Caden Bankier, Rasmus Kumpalainen, Carson Lambos, David Spacek, Samuel Levi, and Riley Mercer. Nicholas Aube-Kubel, Ben Jones, Ben Gleason, and Matt Kiersted were waived to try to get them to Iowa. So there are plenty of players that have been weeded out, but the Carson Lambos situation has been getting a lot of attention because we talked earlier in the offseason when Jack Johnson was signed to a professional tryout that, I don't think you really have to worry about him being somebody that's going to come in and take a roster spot. You know, he has come in and been a camp body and honestly a presence for the young defenseman to be around. But if Jonas Brodin does come back rather quickly into the season, Jack Johnson, even if he did make the roster, that's quite a limited opportunity that he would have with this Minnesota Wild team. It'd be one thing if Brodin was out for 2-3 weeks where you could hop in and kind of see how things go. But if Brodin is going to miss a couple of games to start the season and then is going to be ready to vault right back into the lineup, that may not be an opportunity that a 38-year-old is looking for in what is likely going to be one of his final seasons in the league. And again, I will remind you, the Wild would have to sign Johnson to the roster in order for him to make the team. As of right now, you've got Brock Faber, Jared Spurgeon, Jake Middleton, Zach Bogosian, Zeev Buium, and David Jiricek. That is 6 right there. So the Wild will know by the end of the week what they're going to do. If Brodin is progressing nicely, there's your 7. Now, what the lineup looks like is another story entirely, but I guess I'm a little surprised that Lambos was sent down already, but let's consider as well the choices here. I still think that Lambos will be the primary injury call-up for the Wild on the defensive side if there is an injury that's sustained to any of those defensemen in the regular lineup. And you've got Jared Spurgeon, you've got Jonas Brodin. They do have a bit of an injury history between the two of them. But what is going to better serve Carson Lambos right now? Playing in Iowa or sitting on the bench? Something that he did last year. He's already got the get your feet wet, get acclimated to the NHL level. He's already got that down. He is also a left shot defenseman, as was pointed out in yesterday's live show. The left shot defenseman that you currently have, Jonas Brodin, Jake Middleton, Zeev Buium, as your 3. Those are all 3 going to be probably on different combinations. So who are you pulling out of the lineup besides Zach Bogosian? Who are you pulling out of the lineup for Lambos? Jiricek? Zeev? I think it is worth mentioning that Lambos, I think, has looked a little better than Zeev Buium throughout the course of training camp so far. So I still hold to the fact that I think we are going to see plenty of Carson Lambos this year. And honestly, I am not upset with him getting an opportunity to work with an actual coach for at least the first little bit of the season, as opposed to just sitting on the bench and watching. That doesn't do him any good. Go play top pairing minutes until somebody gets hurt, and then you get the call up, because the Wild will be able to afford call-ups this year for once, which is a welcome change from where they've been the last few years. You can't get through a season with 7 defensemen. You can't even get through a season with 8. You got to have more like 10 or 11. That's just kind of the nature of the NHL, is that your depth is always tested. So yes, it would have been wonderful to see Carson Lambos make the team, but we're not going to. We will see Lambos at some point this season. I can just about promise you that. As far as Brodin goes, this is welcome news that he is ahead of schedule, because the early prognosis for Brodin was kind of grim. That the injury happened at some point during the offseason, and we had really no other We really had nothing else to go off of other than that. So now it looks like maybe a game or two, and that'll be all he's going to miss, unless something just drastically changes between now and the start of the regular season. But that is at least some good injury news to start us off here today. We do have some not so good injury news, so we'll go from the good to the bad, and we'll finish with the in-between as we continue today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Again, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. We're getting close to 3,600 subscribers on YouTube and should hopefully hit that before the season starts. So make sure to tune in. We've got a lot coming at you here throughout the course of the season. Should be a lot of fun as we get things rolling. So just continuing a little look at the injuries, because we became Locked On Injury Update last year. Might as well keep that going. Matt Zuccarello, again, courtesy of Dylan Lokes. Matt Zuccarello will be out a while. No timetable for his return. Well, we do have one timetable, is that as camp was starting to ramp up, Bill Guerin made mention of something with Matt Zuccarello that had come up and that he was going to be out for a while. Don't have any updates other than that, but I know he did have an appointment last week to try to kind of get a better idea as to what was going on. My guess is that appointment did not go the way that many had been hoping it would. Now, we have talked about kind of how to fill this void, because the Wild kind of showed us their hand as to how this is going to play out, at least early on. We've seen Kirill, Marco Rossi, and Matt Boldy get a lot of time together as the top line. And at least in practice, we have seen the Joel Eriksson-Ek, Vladimir Tarasenko, Liam Ohgren combination get some work together. So that would be my guess as to kind of what we see. But this is going to be a real good indication as to where this coaching staff is at after the offseason. How this vacancy is filled is going to be a perfect tell as to where we're at. Because we all know who's sitting there on the roster as a known commodity, just waiting to be put back in that spot because he's been there before. He's done it before. Yeah, the results haven't been great, but he's been in that spot plenty. He knows how to play that role. It's something you can just plug and not have to worry about it. I have on one side of my brain the portion that says, yeah, they're trying Ohgren there right now, But just wait till the season starts and Marcus Johansson's going to slide right back into that spot like he never left. And the other part of my brain is saying, if Liam Ohgren is showing that he's ready for it, go ahead and give it to him. Because we saw all of last season, we've seen for quite a while that a known commodity can maybe help in some areas, but that doesn't necessarily solve the entire problem. That second line wing spot has been a pretty glaring void on this team for over 2 years. With the exception of a 20-game stint in which Marcus Johansson was brought back to the team, he hopped on the second line with Joel Eriksson Ek and Matt Boldy, and the rest was history. It was a 20-game stint with the guy who was playing with the Capitals team that was floundering in the water. And so he relished an opportunity to go to a playoff contender, get off that Washington team, and come back to an organization that he was pretty familiar with. But that was a 20-game sample. That 20-game sample got parlayed into a 2-year extension, followed by another 1-year extension, and the play has not been anywhere close to that since. And this is that eternal struggle, that eternal struggle for head coaches between veteran players who are quote-unquote known commodities. You know what you're going to get. The performance may not be as good as it would be with somebody else, but boy, you know you're not going to get those boneheaded mistakes that rookies tend to make because they're trying to do too much. If it were a fourth line role and you were going to have Marcus Johansson slide into that role, that's one thing. Yeah, sure, fine. That's perfectly fine. We're going to talk about the potential need for something like that here in a little bit. But it just has been so glaringly obvious over the last couple of seasons that there needs to be somebody in there that can bring something to the table as opposed to simply sitting in the chair and filling the chair just so you don't have to try to find somebody else to do it. One of the big reasons that this team has been knocked out of the playoffs for as many years as they have is because they get a little top heavy in the scoring department. And you're probably going to have to deal with some games where Liam Ohgren makes a mistake or two. Oh no, anything but that. But I could promise you that he could go out there, sleepwalk, and get to 11 goals and 30 points. Sleepwalk to 11 goals and 30 points. The exciting part should be, hey, he might give you 25 goals and 60 points in that spot. You don't know with a young player. What a young player brings to the table is energy and excitement. And a lot of times a much better skill set than the players that often get those spots. So one part of my head hopes that Liam Ohgren will get that spot and will get the opportunity to prove whether he is capable of being more of a middle six or a top six player. This is part of the big show me that is currently being held over this franchise. Prove it. Show me. He is one of the players that factors into that. When Kevin Fiala got traded, Brock Faber and Liam Ohgren were supposed to be future pieces of this team. Now, it was a draft pick, not necessarily Liam Ohgren specifically, but he was drafted with that pick to be part of the group going forward. He put in all the work in the offseason. He put in all the time to get himself ready to go, and it shows. it's time to reward him for that. Because you already know what you have with Marcus Johansson. You could have a high caliber player. You could have, we don't really know with Liam Ohgren. We know what we assume he's going to be, but we won't know what we have with him until he gets an opportunity to show it out there on the ice. So why not take the absence of Matt Zuccarello? Why not take that opportunity to do that right now? Food for thought. We're going to finish today's show by taking a look at another possible injury, because this one I don't really know the answer as to how do you fill. We'll talk about Nico Sturm and his back as we finish today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Just pick a bet, put down $5, and if you hit, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. The Minnesota Vikings taking on the Cleveland Browns across the pond this weekend. They open as 3.5-point favorites over the Browns, which kind of surprises me, but at the same time, Cleveland is Cleveland. The Vikings are still plus 1,000 to win the NFC North and are also plus 5,500 to win the Super Bowl. So if 3.5-point favorite is not, if that's not getting it done for you, NFC North and Super Bowl, you'll thank me later. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Again, make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. We're going to be hitting you with a lot here throughout this week, the final full week of practice before the season starts. So we have a lot to discuss here today. And we're going to finish today's show by taking a look at one other injury. We'll talk about the Zeev Boyum situation too, because he is kind of working his way back as well. But the main ones that I wanted to discuss were, of course, Matt Zuccarello, Jonas Brodin, and Nico Sturm. This update also from Dylan Lokes. Hines said yesterday that Nico Sturm is a moving target as well. He ramped it up hard in the skate, but doesn't know the timetable. Said there could be a roster spot available. Said Hunter Haight has looked great and has really pushed for a spot. So fourth line role. This one is a little more tricky because you've got Nico Sturm, who is the fourth line center. You've got Joel Eriksson Ek and Marco Rossi as your top two centers. We still don't really know who's going to be the third center unless Ryan Hartman takes that spot. And as far as the other fourth line players go, you've got Marcus Johansson, you've got Yakov Trenyan, you've got Danila Yurov in the mix as well. And I think this could be maybe your work-in opportunity for Danila Yurov, although Danila has done about what you would expect from a young player. You know, he's had his moments, and Michael Russo made note of the other day against Dallas that it was a bit of a rocky start for Yurov in the game, but as the game went on, he got more comfortable, he got more sure of himself, and he progressed quite nicely through the game from start to finish. And I think it's just going to take him a little while to get acclimated to playing at this level. Everydayers have heard me preach that there is no set timeline on when players figure it out. Many often don't. Many players don't figure it out at the NHL level ever. Many don't get there. Many get there for like 5 games and they never come back. It is a trial by fire for every single player that makes it to that level. Some guys take 2 games. Some guys take 50 games. Some guys hop right in and are good from the drop. But being good from the drop is not like, that's not the end all be all. It's a different timetable for every player. And for Danila Yurov, it'll be really interesting to see. I would imagine he plays a good majority of the next 2 preseason games. It will be very interesting to see how he looks over the next 2 games and what sorts of strides he makes over that time frame. Face-off circle, he was not good against Dallas. He was 2 of 14 in the circle. That's going to need some work. But you would expect that for a rookie going up against the likes of who the Dallas Stars have at their disposal. You'd expect that. But you would expect him to take that as a learning opportunity and to grow from it and to learn from it. That's the whole thing with these mistakes. That's the whole thing with kind of this disconnect between coaches and young players that happens a lot. It's not just a Minnesota Wild issue. It happens quite regularly. There's a disconnect between mistakes that could or could not cost you games and learning opportunities. If a player is in a bad spot defensively and it leads to a goal, yeah, it could end up deciding you a goal. It could end up deciding a game. But it needs to be a situation to just kind of step back and say, hey, what was your thought process there? What was going through your head in that spot? Explain your reasoning. Okay, here's what you should do. Or it's just an opportunity to have a dialogue and to learn from it and to move on from it. So you've got the roster invitee, Brett Leeson, who could step into a 4th line role, but again, he has to be signed to the active roster. And as Michael Russo also noted, he hasn't really stood out. Vinny Hinostroza has. Vinny Hinostroza has looked really good. And so maybe it's a situation where if Sturm misses a game or 2, you pop Vinny Hinostroza in on that 4th line. You maybe put Danila Yurov on the 3rd line as the center there with Ryan Hartman and Marcus Foligno as his wings. And you just call it good. But can tell it's already a new season because we are not even a full game in and we already are giving injury updates on 4 different players. So just wait till the reasons for pessimism episode comes out, because that's going to be a real big one of that grouping. So as far as what the Wild do to fill Nico Sturm's spot in the lineup, again, doesn't seem like it's anything major as far as right now. Just maybe it's going to take him a couple of games to get himself ready. The other thing that would be really cool to see in this situation is to reward Hunter Haight for a great training camp. Now, he can play center himself, so reward him with an opportunity. Give him an opportunity to slot in as that 4th line center, see what he's got. He's earned the right to see what he has at the NHL level, at least to start the season. If it ends up being that he's not ready for full-time NHL work, that's fine. Send him back down to Iowa, give him an opportunity to work with Greg Cronin, and just to give him an opportunity to put himself in position to be ready the next time. That's the big key to this, is if you have an early stint in the NHL that doesn't work, it's a learning opportunity to go back down to the AHL or to whatever level and to be ready the next time. So for Hunter Haight, and look, there's not to say that he couldn't just grab an opportunity from the get-go and never let go. But if it doesn't work out for him, use it as an opportunity to improve. See how you stack up against NHLers. And to then go down to Iowa and get yourself ready for your next opportunity. If we've learned anything from watching this Minnesota Wild team over the last couple of years, there will be plenty of injuries. I did want to finish with one thing. The Iowa Wilds are getting set for their training camp now that Minnesota Wild training camp is winding down. I will talk more about this as we get closer to the Iowa season. But Greg Cronin, the new Iowa Wild head coach, released a letter to Iowa fans that I would like to read for you to finish today's show. And it reads, "Dear Iowa Wild fans, you may not know a lot about me yet, but I am familiar with your great state. I came to Iowa for the first time as a college hockey coach in 1988 to watch the Buck Bowl in Des Moines. Since then, I have traveled throughout the state from Sioux City to Dubuque, Mason City, Waterloo, Cedar Rapids, and everywhere in between. I have witnessed the four seasons, rolling cornfields, county fairs, and most importantly, down-to-earth Iowans. I am fully invested in everything I do and passionate about achieving excellence. This season, we will create an exciting coaching environment that promotes daily growth and high standards. I am confident that this process will make the Iowa Wild a fun team to watch. This process will empower our players to develop and win. Our goal is to make the playoffs. The playoffs create the most competitive environment, which allows our players and fans to celebrate their collective talents. As we kick off training camp, I am looking forward to connecting with our fans and growing the game of hockey throughout the state of Iowa. I hope to see you, along with your family, friends, and neighbors, at the rink soon. Go Wild, Greg." How about that? How about that for an introductory, we're going to be better this year? I'm telling you, the more that I hear about that, the more that I read into this, I think it's a great fit. I think Greg Cronin is a great fit for Iowa to help get all of these young players, help elevate them to a level that they had not been over the last couple of years. Because there is a direction now. There's a path. There's a process. These are all things that just weren't part of the operational wording over the last few years. And now it's installed. Now it's there. So we'll see how things play out at the Iowa level as well. Of course, we'll keep you up to date on both. And that's our episode here for today. Once again, thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Again, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. We've got new episodes for you every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.